This is a tomato plant grown from seed from a commercial supplier. And this is a tomato plant grown from seeds that were saved from previous seasons. The difference is astounding. Okay, now what I'm about to tell you is going to sound completely insane, but it is 100% the truth. Plants have memories. They remember that time you underwatered them and overfed them. They remember the heat waves and the pest infestations. And the way that they pass down those memories is through their seeds. In this video, we are going to learn how plants learn from their environment and why it's important to save seeds from your garden. And I'll also throw in some tips on how to get started. I'm going to share with you one trick to cultivate resilient plants that thrive in your local climate. Hi, I'm Christina, and today we're talking about saving seeds. This hack is going to be one of your best tricks because not only does it allow you to have bigger harvests and more resilient plants with a deeper connection to your garden, it's also going to save you time because the plants that you grow are going to be specifically adapted to your soil conditions and your microclimate. If a woolly mammoth poops in the forest, does it even matter? It does if you're a berry. Imagine this. A woolly mammoth eats a berry and then travels up north for the summer. Along the way, he has to take a potty break and he poops out those berry seeds. The berry seeds do what they do. They germinate and soon grow into a berry plant. Now, this berry plant notices that the soils are a little bit different than what they're used to and that the summers are a little bit shorter. So over the next several generations, the genes that favor early fruit ripening are expressed. And the plant roots develop a symbiotic relationship with the local soil microbes to help them uptake nutrients. And several thousand years later, when some botanist comes along and picks that berry, he notices that it has characteristics that are very similar to the berries down south, but that the plant has adapted to its new environment in a completely new and unique way to survive. So we can't have a discussion about seed saving without talking about epigenetics. What is epigenetics? Epigenetics is like a cookbook full of recipes where you can ignore certain recipes based on your skill level. Or to put it simply, if your grandmother survived a famine, chances are that you probably have a really difficult time losing weight. And that's because when your grandmother was alive, a gene got turned on during the food scarcity crisis, telling her body like, hey, we got to hold on to every calorie if we want to survive because food is really scarce. And that gene got passed down to your mother and then it got passed down to you. And that's why you can't lose weight. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about epigenetics of plants and how we can use this knowledge to our advantage in the garden. Environmental stressors such as soil composition, heat, drought, cold snaps, they don't change the plant's DNA. The DNA remains the same. But what changes is which genes are turned on and off. You see, plants are constantly adapting to their environment, and they pass those adaptations down to their offspring, making the offspring ideally suited for your garden. I heard we share half our genes with a potato, although I ain't ever seen a potato wearing jeans. Well, there you go. Florida ma'am, everybody. So I started making this video back in May before I went in for treatment. And as I sat down to edit it, I realized that I missed a whole bunch of stuff. So here's a fun game you can play while watching this video. Count the number of outfit changes that you can spot me make and comment how many you see down below. Do you remember when you were in school, the lessons that you learned, such as reading and math? Well, plants are also in the classroom of their own. And their teachers are your local environment, microorganisms, as well as pests and beneficial insects. And each season, those teachers instill in them a valuable lesson about the future. When deciding which seeds to save, you want to look for favorable characteristics that you want to pass on. Perhaps you had some lettuces that survived the heat wave. save those seeds. Maybe you had an okra that survived a pest infestation, save those seeds. You had a pepper that tasted really good, save those seeds. A tomato that produced well late into the season, save those seeds. And this is just one of the ways that you can refine your garden and reduce your reliance on pesticides. Right over here, I am collecting cilantro seeds, also known as coriander. In Florida, cilantro has a tendency to bolt early, which means go to seed. And by saving seeds from slow bolting varieties, I am preserving those slow bolting characteristics and passing them on to plants in the next season. A plant that has done particularly well for me this past season was sweet peas. Sweet peas are normally grown in colder climates, so I'm really excited that I got some of these to go to seed, which means that these seeds right here will be perfectly suited for growing in the Florida climate next year. Another seed that's worth saving are for any plants that are difficult to find. For example, these Orange Wonder snapdragons. I had to look through 3 different seed suppliers because they were constantly out of stock. With so many seed suppliers on the market, you might be wondering which one is the best one for my zone or climate. Looking around, you can see that some of these seeds were grown in Colorado, Texas, Missouri, Massachusetts, but none of them have been grown in Florida. So how do you decide? Well, the best thing you can do is to grow them yourself. It's perfectly okay to buy commercially grown seeds, especially if you're just starting out. The problem with commercially grown seeds is that they are bred for generic conditions. Most of the time, they're bred for the 4 seasons: cold winters and mild to medium hot summers. But when it comes to growing in challenging climates such as Florida, a lot of those seeds can fall short. So the solution is to get at least one plant to grow to seed, save those seeds, and then continue refining those genetics and collecting seeds season after season. By saving seeds from your strongest and most productive plants, you are participating in a evolutionary process. Now, if you want to skip these steps of starting your seeds and cultivating them for several generations, one way to do that is to find a local gardener who is willing to share their seeds with you. Another option is to check your local library. Libraries not only store knowledge in form of books, some of them also carry, that was a dragonfly, some of them also carry seeds from local gardeners, and you can get them there for free. This is purple top vervain. It is an excellent pollinator magnet. I think I got the seeds for this from Southern Seeds, which is now called Seed Therapy. And out of that whole seed packet, I only got 2 plants. And I babied those plants that first year. But after I got some seeds and I replanted those, the plants kind of took over on their own. And now they're volunteering all around the garden. Are there any seeds that you should not be collecting or saving? Now, some people would advise against saving seeds that came from hybrid plants. What's a hybrid? Is that like a half man, half potato? That's Mr. Potato Head. But for the purposes of this video, a hybrid means the child of 2 distinct varieties of the same species. For example, if you took a heat-tolerant tomato like the Everglades and bred that with a big juicy tomato like the Cherokee Purple, the resulting child could have the best of both characteristics. So you could have a heat-tolerant big juicy tomato. Now, is that going to actually happen? You will need a lot of space and time in order to see that experiment come to fruition. And that's why hybridizing fruits and vegetable seeds is a big branch of horticulture. But if you want to do it as a hobby, I highly encourage it. It's something that I enjoy. And if you want to see some of my experiments come to fruition, make sure you hit that subscribe button. So you're probably thinking, this is great. How do I start? Well, you're going to need a first generation of plants. And you have to make sure that that first generation, and this is very important, is open pollinated. So when you are looking for your first generation of seeds on the seed packet, you want it to say either heirloom or open pollinated. So broccoli, cabbage, radishes are all in the same family, and if they are growing nearby, they can cross-pollinate with each other, and the subsequent generations will have a hybridization of those traits. Examples of hybrid plants are sweet corn, certain varieties of tomatoes such as early girl tomatoes, squashes and pumpkins, and many more. Now, the reason that people don't like to save seeds from hybrid plants is because the genetics fall apart after the first F1 generation. Hybrid plants are created by selectively pollinating plants with certain traits, and a lot of times this is done manually as a way to control the kind of characteristics that are developed in that first generation, the F1. A hummingbird. Ah! If you crossbreed two purple broccolis, you are not going to get purple broccoli. You are going to get something completely random. And this is where the challenge comes in, because some people like spontaneity and chaos, and some people want control. If you like control, do not save seeds from hybrid plants. If you like to experiment and want to be surprised, sometimes disappointed, go have at it. There are no rules. This is your garden. You can do whatever you want as long as you got the space for it. Go for it. You might discover something new. Who knows? Now, certain varieties of cucumbers can also be a result of hybridization. I have been saving marigold seeds for the last 5 years, and each season the flowers come back better and stronger. Keep in mind, I'm filming this video in August, and the air right now is so humid it feels like I'm breathing in a warm swimming pool. However, these snapdragons are thriving, and snapdragons are usually a cool season flower. So to see these be so resilient and still in bloom is definitely something to take note of, and to take these seeds, and they're just absolutely beautiful. So let me show you how to collect seeds. Sometimes if I'm feeling lazy, I'll just break the whole stalk off and save that instead of saving individual seeds. When you are collecting your seeds, you want to make sure that they are fully dry to prevent mold before you store them for long term. I like to use little reusable Ziploc bags, tiny jars, pretty much anything that I have available. It just depends on how chaotic and organized you are. Now, what I like to do is I like to label them, and you're going to say to yourself, I'm going to remember what these are. You are not going to remember what they are next season. So the best thing to do is you dry them, you put them in a little airtight container, and you label them with what they are and when they were collected. All right, were you taking notes? There's going to be a test at the end. Just kidding. But if you found this information useful, I also made a downloadable e-guide that you can purchase on my website for $6.99. The website is foreverfoodforest.com, and any proceeds from those purchases go towards helping the channel. Make sure to drop a like on your way out, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.